In today's video, we're going to build this really simple end table, and I'm going to use this video to talk about a few things. First of all, the way I love to attach legs to these types of builds. Secondly, we're going to talk about the finish. This is a really cool technique. It's easy to do, and you can get some pretty cool results with it. And lastly, I want to talk about the Izzy Skirt Washer, a product I designed that's now available on the market, and how to use it. Today's project is pretty simple and straightforward, and everything I used I bought pre-milled from one of the big box stores. After laying it out off camera, I cut my skirts to length, and then I want a way to attach braces to the backs of the skirts, which is really secure. So I set my saw up at 45-degree angles and cut one side of each of the skirt, and then flipped it around and came back and cut the other side to create a V-groove in the back of each skirt on both sides. Now I want that V-groove to accept a full 3/4 inch piece of material that I can use for a brace later in the build. And this will all make sense here shortly. With the skirts cut and the grooves cut in the back of them, I laid them out in relation to where they will go to the legs, and then I use that to measure out how big I want my braces. So once I have that measurement, I cut the braces to size. Then with a straight edge, I'm going to mark the center position on each one of these braces where I'll drill a 1/4 inch hole. And on one of the braces, I'm going to measure back 3/8 of an inch, and I'm going to mark 3 positions where I'll drill a 1/4 inch hole, and I'll use those positions to actually attach the brace to the skirt. Now I'm just going to use that one that I laid out as a template to drill holes on all other braces on both sides. After drilling all the holes, I'm going to give each of the braces a light sanding and then attach them to the skirt. To attach them to the skirt, I'm using both wood glue and screws. I line the top and bottom up as best I can, and then go ahead and put the screws in. I'm using Spax screws on here because I'm going to use a Spax lag as well, and I want everything to kind of match. Now after the glue dries, I will remove the screws before I finish it because I don't want to see finish over the top of hardware. I'm a little OCD like that. Now provided I set my table saw up properly, I shouldn't have to worry too much about lining this thing up. It should come pretty close to a 90-degree angle, and when I say pretty close, I mean right on. Now after the skirt is made, I like to set all the legs in place just to make sure everything is lining up like it's supposed to, and I'll have nice tight joints in the end. And then I'm going to drill a countersunk hole in the top of the skirt. Now I'm installing these Izzy Skirt Washers behind each of the legs, so when this is actually attached to the top, you won't see any of the mounting hardware. Now to do this, I just drilled a 9/16 hole to a 1/8 inch depth, and then I carved out a little bit of material there so it allows the elongated part of the washer to move. Now I designed these washers to work with 1/2 inch material all the way up, so the hole can be offset from the center a little bit, and you don't have to actually carve that out, but in this case I want that little bit of extra material. So after the skirt washer is screwed in place, you can flip it over and see how you can run a screw down and actually mount that to the tabletop, and with it being hidden behind the leg, it's kind of cool. Now these washers are designed to move, so in other words, if you have a top screwed down to it, during seasonal changes with flex and contraction in the material, you won't have to worry about the top buckling. The skirt washers will allow the top to move without any hassle at all. Next thing I'm going to do is cut a little bit of the back of each leg away so it doesn't run into the mounting hardware. Just clean that up. And lastly, I want to add some trim to the skirt. And this again is just store-bought trim I picked up from one of the big box stores, and I'll glue it and then I'll tack it in place with some 23 gauge pin nails. So the finishing process I'm using is something I've been doing for the last 20 years, and it works really well, and you can get some really cool marbleized looks and some textured looks. I'm actually starting with an acrylic water-based paint on the base, and this color is antique white, and I'm just going to brush a really thin coat on, just enough to cover everything. And I did that on the legs as well. Now once it's all dry, I'm going to come back and just sand off some high points. This is going to create some depth of feel when I put the color on this. Now I'm coming back with a color called Early American. This is an oil-based stain. Now on the skirt I'm actually going to put 2 coats. I'm going to go over one real quick just to fill in all the low spots and then wipe it off. And then I'm going to come back afterwards and add some texture with my brush. Now the nice thing about using this acrylic base paint is it doesn't allow the stain to really move or to even out. So when you put it on, it pretty much stays in its location. Now I added the stain to both the legs and to the skirt, and then came back over it with 2 coats of lacquer, scuffing in between each coat. After the finish had dried, I reinstalled the hardware and then attached the skirt to the top. Now I just stained the top, so I'm not really going to go over that. Now once I had the skirt attached to the top in the position that I wanted it, I'm going to come back and attach the legs next. And this is a really cool way of attaching legs, because if you're moving or you're shipping, you can just easily unscrew the legs and pack it up so it doesn't take up as much space. Now I did not pre-drill these. I'm using a Spax lag, so it's kind of a self-tapping lag bolt, but if you're drilling into oak or something that's not soft, you'll definitely want to pre-drill. Now with the project completed, I can flip it over and don't see any of the mounting hardware, which is kind of cool. And this finish is a fun finish to play with. It's pretty simple technique. I would encourage you to try some different things and see what kind of cool looks you could come up with. Now with the skirt washers used for mounting the tops can move. I could even put this outdoors and wouldn't have to worry about the top warping.
Think Woodworks. Get your think on.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you're new to my channel, I'd love to invite you to subscribe. You never know what's going to happen next here on Think Woodworks, because I don't really know what's going to happen next. Also, don't forget to check the description box below for links to stuff you saw in this video. And remember what your mama taught you, sharing is caring. So if you found this video useful, please share it around. Talk to y'all soon.